back to the Nick and Joe Show. I'm Nick, he's Joe, and we had way too much fun in that last segment, I gotta tell you. We were discussing Canadians who have gone down, sought their fortunes south of the border, sometimes starting off with their nose in the Canadian taxpayers' feed bag. And sometimes, once in a while, that's really pans out, but we started by talking about a woman by the name of, who goes by the name of Grimes, who is romantically linked to Elon Musk. Now, that name should ring a bell for obvious reasons, if you're paying attention at all. But I wanted to, while we're doing that, I wanted to give a little plug to a lot of performers out there who didn't have access to the Canadian taxpayer's pocket. And guys like Stan Rogers. I was just doing a little reading about him. He passed away in 1980. Where did it say? Stan Rogers died June 2nd, 1983. He was only 33 years old. He died in a DC-9 fire in Columbus, Ohio. And he had originally escaped and went back in to help with the rescue, and was overcome by smoke and died. So, tragic loss. But he is, without doubt, one of the greatest performers Canada has ever produced in the musical arena. There's others out there as well. Rita McNeil. There's a lot of smaller local bands. Great Big Sea. You could cast them into that. Buddy, what's in the name, and the other fellers? Well, you wouldn't know them unless you're somebody like me. But all these people go out there and they do it for the love of the music and the culture, and it's part of what makes Canada such a unique place, because we really do have our own culture. It's not just not that we're not Americans. We actually see the world a little bit differently. You want to see the world really differently? Go to Newfoundland. Man, those people, they know how to have a good time. They really do. They're a lot of fun to spend time around, and their music and their way of life reflect that. And it's also true across the country in each area. Like, look at Gordon Lightfoot. There's another performer we didn't mention before. What a voice. I mean, he had quite a career and has written all kinds of music specifically about Canada and about its history. So there's a lot there. And I just wanted to take a moment and give those guys a plug, because we often overlook them to our great discredit.
Well, okay, so while we're on the subject, okay, fine. Just to finish it off, Nick.
Okay.
Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Oh, yeah, okay, if you're going to go that route,
right?
Yes.
The Guess Who.
Yeah.
American Woman was a Canadian song.
Yes, it was, yeah. And it wasn't the most flattering
Burton
to
Cummings.
the Americans, at least.
Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman. And, we could go Rush. Rush is a Canadian group.
They are, without, in my son's estimation, they are the best rock and roll group ever to grace the stage. Now, he's obviously never heard of Queen, but that's a different story.
Queen being British, of course, though.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I must admit Queen is British, but they are without doubt the best band ever to take the stage.
Anyway, moving on, ladies and gentlemen.
Let us move on.
Let's move on. This is, it's a lighter subject. Actually, the subject last segment was a bit of a lighter subject too. I talked a little bit about people's heads exploding, and maybe I wasn't being entirely fair, but thank goodness for Canadian taxpayers. Otherwise, how could we have had a Canadian invasion of Hollywood, right? So, and a rather successful Canadian invasion of Hollywood.
If you consider that important, then yes, it was.
And more people do consider it important. Anyway, this is a little bit serious and a little bit light at the same time. And, I was noticing a few years ago, Nick, I came across this term Black Friday, and I had never heard about it before. And it was relatively new then. I'm not going to say it was new immediately that year. Maybe it had been around for a couple of years. My kids knew about it, so it must have been around for a couple of years already at the time. But Black Friday was, of course, the massive sale that went on the day after American Thanksgiving. American Thanksgiving, the stores were all closed, people are celebrating, they're with their families, etc. I would argue that Thanksgiving is a bigger holiday in the United States, a bigger family holiday in the United States than even Christmas is. Okay, but that's not the subject right now of the discussion. So Black Friday comes along, you have all of these specials and that, and Black Friday was, I guess, the official kickoff of the Christmas shopping season, being that it would be the last Friday of the month of November, or potentially even the first Friday. It could be December 1st as well. So that was Black Friday. But the last couple of years I've noticed we're not just talking about Black Friday, but we're talking about Black Friday week, which starts, of course, on the Monday of Black Friday. And then we had the pre-Black Friday week this year, which was last week. And next thing we know, we're going to be talking about Black Friday month, which is November. And it got me to thinking, I'm looking around and I'm saying, I like Christmas. I know my Jewish family and friends are going to go, oh, come on, Christmas. But yeah, I like Christmas. I like the ambiance. I like the atmosphere. I like the attitudes of people seem to change. There's a lot I like about Christmas, just as, the general environment. And Christmas is always starting, around after American Thanksgiving. Traditionally, that's when people start to get into that. Thanksgiving is the kickoff of the holiday season, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every year I'm noticing that it's getting longer and longer and longer, to the point where I'm walking through a Loblaws, which here in Canada is one of the major grocery chains. They have the big stores, not your local supermarket, but and they're already selling Christmas decorations, Christmas presents, etc. They're putting up Christmas trees after Canadian Thanksgiving, which is in the middle of October. Am I the only one that's looking at this and saying, I like Christmas, but it's starting to get to be a little bit much? And this is what I call Christmas creep.
Not by a long shot. Because now I come at it from the Christian perspective, okay, just so that people understand where I'm coming from. But Christmas has been so commercialized, and the original intent of Christmas, the celebration of the birth of a child, 2,000 years ago, has really been watered down. And it bothers me because that's not what it's about. It's about, even if you take the religious element out of it, Christmas is about family. It's about, taking time to really show how much you care about your family and so on, these kind of things. And it's not about how much money a particular department store can make. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a capitalist. I'm a big-time capitalist. I love the free market economy because it pays for everything that we have in our culture. It's the best way for anybody to get ahead in the world. And when you look around and ask yourself, what are we gaining by this? Well, you have now all kinds of different things available to you never would have had under any other system. So I'm not against companies making money. I just think that sometimes they carry it too far. And they try to maximize, they try to guilt you into it through subliminal advertising. They try to, hurry you to make your decisions so they can make money now. And all of this stuff is in and of itself not bad. But I'm tired of it too. Like, in my mind, until after Remembrance Day or Veterans Day in the United States, there should not be no Christmas music, no Christmas lights, none of that stuff. Because like anything else, it doesn't matter how good the meatloaf is, you're going to get tired of it if that's all you ever have, right? It's the same thing here. The season is special because it's not all that long. And yet every time I turn around, just like you, it's getting longer. One season's flowing into another. Like, they start putting out Christmas decorations right after Halloween. And they put out Halloween. I mean, back to school starts before the kids are even out of school.
Hey, I never thought that Halloween was a major celebration, but I got to tell you, I have neighbors that start decorating their front lawns for Halloween shortly after, around the beginning of October.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have decorations out there for a whole month.
Yeah,
so
people like to do that.
Well, we started out talking about Christmas creep, but how about Halloween creep?
Creep. Yeah, that's kind of creepy thing to talk about, Joseph. Couldn't help it. Sorry.
Nick made it funny.
Yeah, once in a while it just slips out and I can't help it. So. Yeah. Anyway, but you're right. Let's call it the marketing creep, where you have a season coming up, and it's not just based on Christmas. It's based on pretty much all of the holidays. All have this idea that, okay, how can we maximize our revenue over this given time period so that we can put as many people through the turnstiles as possible? And like I said before, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but sooner or later you end up with diminishing returns where people say, I do not want to hear jingle bells, and this is in November, one more time or I'm going to scream. I do not want to have to put up with Valentine's Day, on January 1st, because that's the next holiday. I don't want to talk about back to school in June. It's going to, what will eventually happen, the creep will be so bad that there will be no time during the year when there's not some, hey, don't forget what's coming, you better get ready kind of a mentality in our marketing. And I would be delighted to go through a month, 2 months, without being assaulted every time I walk into a store by somebody wanting to sell me the latest whiz bang that's going to make my life so much better for the next 30 seconds, and then after that I'll have forgotten all about it.
I'm just thinking about what comes after Valentine's Day. That would be Easter. Because
right.
The stores are full of chocolate Easter bunnies. But what comes after Easter? I guess it would be. I would think it would be Dominion Day or 4th of July.
No. Before that, you're going to have the Victoria Day weekend.
Yeah, but there's nothing. What do they do for? Well, they do for
opening the cottage. When people start thinking about summer and they get the pre-summer sales, it's all centered around the May. They may not call it the May 2-4 long weekend sale, but it's the pre-summer sale. Canadian Tire, Walmart, you pick your big box store, whatever it is, they're all going to be marketing stuff that you're going to need to open up the cottage with, or to go camping with, or to go fishing with, or whatever. It's a seasonal thing, and one flows right into another.
Huh. But there's nothing.
So you don't spend any time in the outdoors, so therefore you wouldn't recognize those things because they're not of interest to you.
Here we go. What about Labor Day? I guess that would be back to school, right?
Yeah, absolutely, back to school, no doubt about it. They may have been leading up to that, but that's the real big. That's when they really start hammering back to school.
Well, before Labor Day. So Labor Day is the